So, hello, would you like to give a brief introduction of yourself and how you fit into CHL?
Right, so I'm Tessa Morris-Suzuki and I'm a professor in Pacific and Asian history. I work mostly on modern Japanese history, but also got an interest in East Asia more generally, particularly Japan's relations with Korea.
Awesome. So, have you ever seen a budget cut like this before in any institution?
It's a little bit difficult to say because I know there are other places that have had major budget cuts, and I know there's been, even in ANU there was this huge cut of the music school, but because I haven't been quite so closely associated with other places, I can't, I don't know the precise figures, but certainly this is by far the worst issue that I've seen in our part of the university since I've been here, and I've been here since 1992, so it's quite a while.
So, on to a completely different topic, how satisfied were you with the financial modelling session yesterday?
I thought it was helpful to get the figures, but I think I asked during the meeting, I just can't understand why we didn't get those a year and a half ago. It's much too late in the day.
Do you think there were any questions that were left unanswered?
Yes. I think there were a lot of questions left unanswered. Some of the ones that I have are, I don't know from those figures how much they're taking into account, people who've just retired, people who've said they're going to retire, and people who are in conversations with the dean about, taking early retirement and all of those things. So the figures were pretty broad brush, and it was helpful to have them, but there's a lot that I'd still like to know more about.
Definitely. Next question is, do you think the budget cuts can be justified by the explanation we've been given by the college?
That's a tricky one. I do accept that there is a huge deficit and that, we have to do something about the deficit. And as for the reasons for the deficit, well, I think, we got some of the explanations yesterday. But to me, the real problem is, why it's got into this situation. And I don't think the university's really faced up to the processes involved. So, to me, the huge problem is that they knew at least a year and a half ago that there was a problem. And the obvious thing to do at that stage would have been for us to sit down and think, well, where's this problem coming from? Obviously, we're not recruiting enough students. How do we reorganise our courses so that we recruit more students? And we could have done that. If we'd done that, in 2014, we could have, I think, considerably improved the situation last year. And okay, we might still be in a fairly serious situation. We might even still be facing cuts, but at least we would have been in a much better situation than we are. So, it would really have been sensible to look at, what we can do to address the problem immediately, and then think, okay, if that doesn't solve it, then maybe we have to have cuts. But instead of that, we got into this ridiculous situation where we were told we have to do this restructuring. We've spent months and years, going through this process of endless meetings and report writings and things that never seem to have any effect. And they've just made the whole situation much worse than it needed to be.
So it's really been, I guess, a barrier between doing other work, like doing better courses and proposing new courses as well. So this review process over, what did they say, 18 months at least, has been it's been awful. And it's been more sort of like, what's the word? It's been more damaging than, anything else.
Yes. And what's frustrating about it is that, we knew that. So, like, when we started having meetings to talk about the restructuring and so on at the beginning of last year, a lot of people were saying we shouldn't be doing this. We should be talking about how we expand our intake of students and how we restructure our courses. But we couldn't do that. We had to talk about, how we might reshape the school and all that, and we had to wait until the external review committee came in, and then we had to respond to the external review committee's report and all that. And meanwhile, the situation was getting worse and worse. So I think it's really been mishandled.
Yeah, the hoops of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So the next question is about online courses. Do you have any experience with teaching online courses?
Not very much. No, I mean I've taught courses that have had an online element, but I haven't done ones that have been purely online.
So from your experience, do you think they can be as effective as face-to-face courses?
Again, probably haven't really had enough experience to say decisively. I'm not completely anti-online courses. I think they could be useful in various ways, particularly tapping pools of students that we don't have access to otherwise. But I don't think they're the answer to all the problems, and certainly if you're doing particularly high-level language courses and so on, you need a lot of face-to-face contact as well.
Definitely. What do you see as the benefits of teaching the so-called less commonly taught languages?
Oh yeah, I mean I think that's really important. So I've been involved with the ASA, the Asian Studies Association of Australia, for quite a long time, and for years and years we were arguing that Australia just really needs to keep at least somewhere that teaches the less commonly taught Asian languages, partly because even though we might not, it might not be important in national terms to have lots of people who can speak them, to keep up those cultural contacts, we need some people. But also there's a really kind of hard-nosed strategic reason for wanting to keep the small languages, and that is that you never know when somewhere that doesn't seem all that important strategically at the moment is going to become enormously strategically important. So I mean Burma's a good example. So for a long time Burma was not very much on the radar, and now there are all these important things happening in Burma, and you need people who can speak the language. There have been many cases in the past where countries have been caught finding that they've got a big issue with another country and they don't have the people who can use the language in order to provide expert knowledge. So I think it's something, in terms of national importance, it's a really big issue.
Definitely. So I guess that's an argument for the continuation of this what's it called, the language of strategic allocation, that is supposed to taper off and be taken away in 2018, leaving us in a crisis in 2019.
Yes, I think it's really important to maintain that. I mean, if you think about it in national terms, I suppose it doesn't have to be the ANU that does it, but I think somewhere has to do it.
Definitely. How do you think that transitioning staff onto 3-year contracts could impact the quality of languages that is being taught at ANU?
I think it's going to be a very big problem, because it simply, makes life much more insecure for those academic staff members, and some of them, I would imagine, are very quickly going to start looking for jobs elsewhere. If they leave early in their contracts, then are we going to be able to bring people in to fill those jobs? Probably not. It creates a whole range of problems.
In fact, I think universities have previously been sort of blacklisted for having these sort of 3-year contracts, non-permanent positions. So I guess it would definitely be a barrier to staff who are trying to find a job at ANU. Maybe they'll look at somewhere else instead.
Yes,
definitely. Start from that question again. Do you know of any alternative budget models that the staff are making?
Not really. I mean, I know that Simon Haverley and people on the CHL committee have put together their own budget figures. I don't, from what I've heard, they're not radically different from the university ones, but I'm not sure about that. But other than that, I don't know of anybody else who's doing budget figures. It's kind of difficult for us, to both have the expertise and to get access to all the figures.
That's very true. I guess one of the main issues in this entire thing has been transparency, and the fact that people have been getting figures, but they're different every time.
Yes.
It's really concerning that, this doesn't just happen to us. We've had things appear and disappear on various things. Undergraduates can't get that, but I just thought that was because we're undergraduates. But
it works right across the university, and yes, we have exactly the same problem. It's very frustrating.
It's very concerning as well. That one of Australia's top institutions should have these sort of problems.
Yes, and I mean, like with the discussion that we had yesterday about the fact that we then make the wrong decisions because we're getting the wrong information about where the sources of the problems are coming from. So, you know, on the ARC grants thing, we were given to believe that that was a major drain on the budget, and therefore people were not being encouraged to apply for sort of, you know, ARC fellowships and so on last year. And then yesterday they turn up and say, actually, this has been a big plus for the budget. So.
Do you think that ANU can continue to offer the same quality language courses if these cuts are put in place?
No. Short answer. No. I don't know, you know, because we still don't know exactly how those budget figures are going to translate into numbers of people and which people would leave, but it makes sense to say that if you get rid of, you know, some of your very active teaching and research staff, what you do is not going to be as good as it was.
Yes, definitely. Do you have any additional comments you'd like to make?
I guess just a couple of things. I mean, one thing is, I think the languages issue is really an important one, but I also think that the other areas are really important. So I'm very concerned about teaching of, you know, anthropology, history, and those areas being run down as well. And actually, you know, in some of the things that we've been writing to Vice Chancellor and so on, we've been trying to make the point that it's just, again, you know, it's really important in terms of Australia as a whole that people get education in Asian history, Asian societies, and particularly because I think in Australian culture generally, I mean, people learn to some extent about Europe and, you know, Britain and the United States. I mean, you just have to turn on your TV, you know, and you get some sort of information, but they pick up much less about Asia and the Pacific, which are our immediate neighbours and are really important to us. And also, I think sometimes, you know, people get the idea that what really matters is the kind of international relations and strategic studies and politics knowledge, and the humanities and the other social sciences are not so important. But just, you know, from the area of history that I'm in, I just think it's so important, because if you look at what's happening like between Japan and China and Korea and so on at the moment, without historical knowledge of the region, you just cannot understand what's going on. And, you know, people actually make strategic mistakes because they don't understand that. So, you know, we need to be teaching people about these things, and ANU's been a really important centre for that. And if CHL gets seriously run down, there just won't be anywhere, you know, doing it to the same extent. So it's you know, it's an issue that I think really goes beyond CHL and CAP and even ANU.
Right. Thank you so much for your time.
That's fine. You're welcome. Thanks for